Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ, to the Tuesday Nighters, to the book club. This is week 96 of the book club. This is week 21 of the suggestion box. And tonight's class is on James, the first chapter. This is what you've accomplished over your reading over the past couple months. Actually, over the past year and a half. It's just amazing how much you have consumed. That's the more detailed list. Again, you can print screen these if you'd like. I'm not going to say these every single week. It gets a little redundant, but please look and see what you've done. It is fabulous. All right, we're going to get to it. So this week, our chapter is, I'm going to say was, and also is James 1. It's one chapter, it's 27 verses, it's 544 words. None of that should be exhausting just by length. Um, and I hope it was much more than exhausting. And what I mean by that, I hope the blessings were there for you. Um, Surprisingly delightful for me. And I only say that because I've read this so many times. But this time it was different. So, my overview doesn't mean it's proper, doesn't mean it's correct. This is just the viewpoints and comments from me. I felt that this first chapter, especially in this reading of it, not in the past, was a compilation of James' thoughts concerning what I found was a theme, a unique theme at that. And I thought the theme was purity. And I had never read this chapter in that vein at all. I never read it in actuality, to establish any kind of theme. But it did come to me, and I did feel, I'm not going to say inspired, but I did feel like that was the theme of this chapter. And it's important for me, at least for me, maybe not for you, but for me to say, with no regard to the fifth verse, which has always been my focus. When I've opened James 1, I've always gone right to the fifth verse. But even that fifth verse I found after establishing the theme, I found that addressing the theme itself, purity. James 1:5, remember, was a key to restoring the very institution that returned pureness to mankind. And so even this fifth chapter, or this fifth verse, was part of the theme, at least again, as I interpreted. James utilized differing sections, if you will. It felt like we went from a couple verses here to a couple verses there to a couple verses there, and each one of them felt grounded in purity. He used words, very pure words like doers, undefiled, every perfect gift. And then the most obvious, pure religion was defined. So for me, this first chapter became a how-to, if you will, how to accomplish and serve God in purity. And I think he used a very clever means to do that as well, to present the inverse, which is impurity, through other examples like those who lack wisdom, those who waver, those who are hearers only, those who are double-minded. So for me, somewhat like Psalms, maybe Proverbs, maybe every now and then we stumble on one of those chapters that this is my mindset, that takes us to a shoreline. Growing up in South Florida, this is what I remember. I remember people my age now um, walking the shoreline later in the afternoon. So I think that these are chapters that we slow walk on the shoreline with our own proverbial metal detectors. And I can remember hearing the sounds. They would vibrate and buzz when someone would uncover some gem, like a quarter or a dime. I don't know what they were actually searching for. I'm sure rings and watches, but I often saw them just get get changed, but we are certainly uncovering gems in some of these verses. So I believe this chapter, whoever selected it, it was not me, whoever selected it, made this walk worth seeking and finding the gems in each one of these verses. And I hope you found them as well. The full beauty of James 1 may have been overlooked. It was by me, so maybe for you too, overlooked for years by specific focus on that verse 5. And I believe that this focus on this verse is warranted. So please don't anyone take this wrong. Given the inspiration that verse provided a young Joseph Smith seeking direction years and years and years ago. However, sometimes we can miss the surroundings, which can be so much more than we expected. That's how I went into this chapter. So delighted by those things that were unexpected to me, if looking solely on the beauty of one subject, in this case, verse 5. But I gave you 3 examples of something similar. So there's Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. And I'm told if you go just to see Mount Rushmore, it's a little underwhelming based on size, but more importantly, based on the surroundings of Mount Rushmore. Hoping this will come up for you. And maybe not. There we go. Look at that. Look at all around Mount Rushmore. So we come to just see this great carving in the mountain, but there's so much more to explore. Maybe you've heard of the Acropolis in Athens, Greece, but there's so much more. That's it on the hill in the back. Look at everything around this beautiful subject. Maybe you've pictured the pyramids as I have. It's always a snapshot like this. They always look side by side. It always looks like this is all there is in the desert. Actually, there's some pictures show with the Sphinx in front of that. But I couldn't capture that picture in this one. But there's so much more. Look at the city beneath. And look at what I thought was this vast desert is not at all. So again, sometimes we can be fooled by one subject when there's much, much more. One verse out of 27 is what has always drawn me to James 1, but I found so much more beauty. Now, all these verses that I hopped on, and I hope you did as well. Maybe you knew, as I did. I don't think I ever put them all together in James 1. So James 1 shows purity, again, in my belief, in our daily walk by presenting everything that we may have known or heard, but using different perspectives through the eyes of Jesus Christ, through the Spirit of Jesus Christ, through the love of Jesus Christ. So he immediately addresses temptations with a new outlook. He says, count it all joy. And he gives the reason why, as they can provide us patience. Do you find yourself confused or uncertain? This is a reference to that 5th verse. Ask God in faith for his answers, and it shall be given him. Do you find yourself surrounded by difficult or trying challenges? He tells us to endure at those temptations because they deliver the crown of life. Tells us to resist lust, resist temptations to sin. Because, and then he builds us up and tells us what our callings are, because we are a kind of first fruits of God's creatures. He tells us we don't just hear the word, we live by it. He says it this way, be ye doers. And I don't ever remember seeing this phrase so clear. He says, as this will save your souls. There's always this verse that I've loved, I think, since I can remember. It says that pure religion is clarified, this is my interpretation, as giving with disregard, with no regard to getting, just giving without receiving. He says it this way: pure religion is to visit the fatherless, visit the widows in their affliction. And he says to remain unspotted. Now, these are actions that define purity in serving God and in serving mankind. And maybe when you hear these, you're stirred to remember the words of someone we just read, maybe a month ago, the great servant leader, King Benjamin, who said, when you are in the service of your fellow beings, you're only in the service of your God. And when you hear that, serving God and serving man, maybe King Benjamin's words stir up the words of the greatest servant leader, Jesus Christ, who said, love God, love others.